So I know most of you at least are interested in technology, innovation, and all that exciting stuff going on in Silicon Valley. But how do some of these things relate to, say, one of the next biggest milestones in our youth life, college, right? Getting into good colleges, getting a solid college education. And what kinds of impact these types of activities and recognitions have on college admissions. And really, more importantly, what about beyond that, beyond college? Well, I think one of the parents' question is about field of study. Okay, do we actively encourage our kids to study science, to study engineering? What if they want to study film, like Ian's son? Is that a good choice? So how do all these things relate? Well, let's take a look how we should really prepare our next generation for the new challenges and for some of the major milestones in their life, like going to college and beyond. Okay, as you can see, you already see what I'm about to talk about. Erickson, right? He's really made history this year. I think he's the only person and first person so far in all these science competitions history who has won first place in all of them. Okay, first guy ever. So he won Intel Science Talent Search, he won Siemens competition, and he also won last year's Google Science Fair. Now, is that enough? Is that why he's attending Harvard this fall? In fact, from the brief bio I have on there, you can tell he's a pretty busy guy. In addition to winning all these major science awards, he finds time to do fencing. In fact, he's the captain of his high school varsity fencing team, and he qualified for the Junior Olympics last year as well, while he's doing all this advanced research. Not only that, he also finds time to help in the local senior center, to work with seniors, to help them use computers. He's a pretty savvy computer guy, okay? In fact, his research is a combination of chemistry, biology, and computer science. Okay, that parent, one of the questions earlier was about, well, how come all the life science research projects win their awards? In fact, if you look deeper, most of the winners are not life science versus computer science or physical science, engineering. Most of the winners, if not all of the winners, if you read their research papers, interdisciplinary projects. Okay, that's a keyword, parents. It's not just life science, not just physical science, it's not just engineering. It's the combination of many of these fields that really give these students an edge. Okay, so anyway, while he's doing all these research work, he still spends a lot of time working on other things. In fact, one of the things Ian mentioned earlier, building character, okay, to have the right value system is also key, okay, and that's why he succeeded. It's not all about winning Intel, all right? So here's Eric. What are some of the other famous winners? We saw on the slides earlier, we have a lot of Nobel laureates and many other famous science and engineering and technology people. It's not all like that, okay? Here's a very good example. I don't know if you guys already see the person on the other side of my chart. You probably never expected, okay? So around Intel Science Talent Search participants, its 73-year history, we also have Oscar winners, okay? Natalie, actually during her senior year, just like Eric, she was busy doing science research. She participated in STS, and actually won some smaller awards, not the first prize. But during that same year, during 1998, guess what else she was doing? You guys know? She was one of the famous Star Wars young stars. Okay, so already during high school, she was a major actress already. And of course, doing a lot of other work to help her local communities, very active in the New York Jewish communities, and has done some wonderful work in high school. And that's why she also went to Harvard. Okay, so here's a case. She didn't win Intel Science top awards. She only participated in research and participated in some of these competitions. She didn't win any major science awards. She still gets to go to Harvard, right? Still becomes one of the most positive contributor to society. Okay, so here's obviously a different kinds of example of students during high school, very active in science research, and yet took a very different path, right? So if Ian's oldest son is still in the audience, being in the film industry is not a bad idea, right? We still have many great successes and examples to look forward to, okay? So there are different paths. Okay? The bottom line is there are many different paths, even if you're involved in science, to lead you to the top, okay? All right. But what's the key point? What are some of the important attributes we try to help our students develop? Whether they are involved in science, they're doing research, or they're doing many other things. Okay, two things. One, they need to develop a sustained intellectual curiosity throughout their life. Not just for high school, not just for college, but way beyond college. Okay, that's why we want to label the goals as lifelong goals, not just to get into a good college. Okay, especially for some of the parents. I know many of the parents are so focused, so micromanaging the process. All they see is to get into Harvard, to get into Stanford. Okay, it needs to be way bigger than that. Any goal we set for our next generations, for our kids, needs to be way bigger than getting into a good college and much longer term. Okay, that's the critical factor. Okay, so number one, to really help them develop this lifelong interest in learning, in gaining knowledge. Okay, and number two, to put that good knowledge to some good use. Okay, here I said sustain some determined, focused, and disciplined attempt to solve an important problem. That important problem is not getting into college. How do we overcome obstacles to get into Stanford? That's not what we're talking about. Okay, that problem needs to be much bigger. Right? I think in one of the earlier slides you guys saw about Intel and these competitions, it mentioned right, how we help the next generation to really discover solutions to solve the global warming and many of the biggest challenges. Okay, so those are the problems we want our kids to focus on. So two things: one, to develop interest, to develop knowledge, and to raise their skill level. And number two, really even more importantly, how to put those things into good use. Okay, so that's really our goal. Way beyond getting into a good college. Okay, so if parents, students, if you didn't remember any of what we talked about today afterwards, those are two key things, and we're going to revisit this with much more specifics. Now, of course, today we're talking about technology, science, innovation. So let's look at that path. Okay, if we're going to have our kids go through that path and really get involved, how does it look like? Okay, so we're going to look at it from our perspective. From an educational perspective, what are some of the specific things they can do to really become someone who makes an impact, who makes a difference? Okay? I call it a three-phased approach. How do we get to Intel Science Talent Search and win an award like Eric does? It's not a one-day thing. It's not a one-month effort. Okay? It's a long-term effort. And this is where getting started early comes in. In the first phase, I call it the preparation phase. Well, guess what? Whether you're in science or not, there are some very interesting and important things you have to do. Okay, like taking the most rigorous courses at school, even from elementary and middle school levels. I put G3 to G12 for a reason. Okay, many students at least thought, okay, it's only the Chinese parents who are so into academics and they are forcing their kids to try to take the most difficult courses at school, and they're overdoing it when kids are still too young. That's a very big miss. Okay. Do you guys know about the CTY programs, Johns Hopkins CTY? Anybody heard of CTY? Okay, well, a lot of you. I see some students even raising their hands. Probably they went to CTY camps in previous summers. Do you guys know what the CTY program's youngest age level or grade level is for? Anybody? Ah, I see that kid raising their hands. Second grade in elementary school. Okay. That's why I said G3 to G12. That's not too early. Okay. If you think your kids started early, the upper echelons of society, many of the top tier of the pyramid, start when they enter kindergarten. Okay, that's why CTY programs, these programs that have been around for 50 years, 75 years, have specific programs, summer programs, by the way, for residential programs, even some of them, for second graders, third graders, and elementary school students. Okay, and what does CTY stand for? Center for Talented Youth. So most of these kinds of talented, gifted youth programs start from second grade, third grade. Okay. Duke University's TIP, same thing, TIP, Talent Identification Programs, and Stanford's EPGY, I don't have to explain. Probably a lot of Bay Area kids participate in EPGY programs. Okay, so all of these programs actually start pretty early. That's why G3 to G12. But more important than taking the most advanced classes, building the foundation skills also critical. Okay, reading skills, writing skills. These are two of the most fundamental skills you need to master, especially if you want to do science. Okay? Most of Ivy Mac students, when we send them away during the summer to do science research work, science camps, science internships, before they even start, almost 100% of the time, professors assign them what? Like right about now, to about 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, before they go to these research camps at MIT, at Stanford, at Penn, at Harvard. Reading, I heard one parent mention reading, journal readings. So for 2 to 3 weeks, they have to read a whole pile of publications of other research materials in that field, about that subject on which they're going to do research. Okay, so if you cannot read well, and I'm not talking about reading Harry Potter or The Lord of the Rings, these kinds of fun stuff, okay? I'm talking about serious nonfiction reading. So reading and writing skills without saying, right? You do a lot of research. If you don't come up with that good research report, are you going to win Intel Science Talent Search? No. Are you going to win the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair? No. Okay, Google, no. Siemens, no. Without a research report, you don't even qualify. Okay, the first step to enter any of these competition is to enter your report and complete that application. Okay, so reading, writing, even though for many of the kids you may think that's the furthest things away from doing science, doing research, they are core fundamental skills you have to master. And guess what? In order to do well in reading and writing, the earlier you start, the better you're going to become. Okay, so third grader, fourth grader, definitely not too early. Get started and start looking at non-fiction materials for those parents. When you go visit libraries every week, don't just take out fictions and novels anymore. Okay, by the time your kids reach 5th grade, 6th grade, more than half of their reading diet should be about nonfiction. Okay, why? Because all novels are written at 5th grade, 6th grade level. Okay, no matter how famous the authors are, they want to make their materials popular. They want to make their materials reach the broadest audience. So they always write the materials in a very trivial and low-level way, so more people can understand them. More people will go to the bookstores and get on Amazon to buy more of the books. So if you keep reading non-fiction materials, literary material, your reading skills won't improve. You're going to learn. You're going to get exposure to more knowledge and more materials, more information, but you won't improve your reading skills. Okay, so really focus on non-fiction reading and build their good reading habit from an early age. By the time they reach high school, you're going to try to have them read some books. It's going to be very challenging. Okay, if they didn't read all along when they're in younger grades. So reading, writing, very important, and then of course, problem-solving skills. Okay, now if you don't even do science, math competition is critical. Okay, if anyone tells you, oh, that's something we used to do in China or in Korea, this is the US. Come on, nobody cares about math competitions. Wrong. I'll give you an example, because most of the kids are probably too young. The parents haven't gotten to that stage yet. You haven't looked at specific college application forms yet, right? Most of you probably haven't done that. If you take a look at Yale's application form, one of the questions is, what are your AMC and AME test scores? And some parents probably don't even know, what is that? AMC, what does it stand for? What is AME? These are the first round and second round Olympia math competition test names in the US. Why did they ask that question? They didn't say, oh, by the way, if you want to study math or STEM fields, you need to answer the following question. No, 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 no. If you want to come to Yale, even if you want to study history, literature, music, philosophy, psychology, whatever, if you are applying to Yale, tell me your AMC and AME scores. Why is that? You don't have to study science. You don't have to study math or math-related fields. That's because all of the top-tier private schools, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Princeton, name them, all of them uses students' math knowledge, math skills as a measure for their intellect. Okay, they look at your math indicators to see how smart you are. That's why math problem-solving skills are important. Okay? Now, think about it. Even if you want to study psychology, even if you want to study history, classical European literature, doesn't matter. You need to be good with math. Now, if you want to participate in Intel Science Talent Search, if you want to do scientific research, math is even more important, right? So make sure, start from a very early, young age, get into math activities. Okay. Now, of course, to the extent you can, get them exposed to simple, basic science research projects as well when students are young. Then, of course, a few of the things I mentioned, like CTY, TIP, even Cosmos, are very good summer programs for younger kids. Okay, kids in elementary school, middle school, and maybe ninth graders. Okay, Cosmos is not even that great for a competitive program anymore if you are already in your sophomore year or junior year. Okay, we got other stuff, more exciting stuff for you. So that's for future phases. So for this foundation building phase, really get them involved in things. That's going to be a very important concept. Okay, read more, write more, and really participate. Get involved on some of these foundation building activities. I don't have the next level of details because I was only given so much time today. So, but if parents are interested, we have a lot of information about what kids should do at the appropriate ages in different grade levels, okay? By all means, we are more than happy to share those information, perhaps at a different venue. Now, the next phase I call participation phase. Now you've built up a good set of foundation skills, you've gotten the kids interested in some of these fields. How do they participate? Okay, there are very, very interesting and many interesting things they can do in middle school and high school. Here are just some examples. Okay, by all means, they're not exhaustive listing of all things they could do. There are many others. I just happen to use these as examples. Okay, so in school, there are the science Olympiads. There are many of the science competitions, math competitions, single subject Olympiads, as well as science Olympia that cover multiple subjects. Many of these activities are great inroads to get into science research and eventually to get into science competitions. Now, I specifically mentioned one activity that's very popular among many of the mainstream American students. Odyssey of the Mind contest. Okay, how many of you have heard about the contest, and more importantly, how many of you actually have participated in that contest in middle school and high school? Anybody? Wow, no, okay, there are like one or two hands. So you guys haven't participated in this contest, and yet you want to jump like one step to Intel Science Talent Search? Okay, get involved, okay, especially elementary school students, even and middle schoolers, because many of these contests are open to a much broader age group, okay? Like Intel STS is only open to seniors, okay? So as any other age group kids, you can't even participate because they want your research to be really advanced. That's why we call it the Nobel Prize for high school science students. But Odyssey of the Mind is different. It's a very broad-based contest that challenges students in their knowledge and skills in science, in math, in English literature, in many other fields. Okay, so it's a very balanced test to really get students involved on many of these core skill building things, right? So that's why they're in the second phase. Once you build up your foundation skills, you've had a good basic set of tools to use. This is a great opportunity to apply them, all right? So for those of you who have never heard about it, when you go back, Google it, find out how you can participate, okay? Many of the schools may not give you that opportunity. Well, guess what? There's your opportunity to make something happen, okay? Do not, kids, do not go back home and tell, well, Mom, I tried, but our school don't offer it. That's not the end of the road yet, okay? If your school don't offer it, make it happen. Guess what? Now you not only have a chance to participate in an important competition, you have also just contributed to your local community, right? You've made that chance available for other students at your school as well, for other younger kids who are behind you, who will have that chance from now on just because of your effort, okay? So think about these things as challenges, as opportunities for you to do more things, right? Ian mentioned earlier, to be successful, you need that bit of luck. Well, luck doesn't just happen randomly, all right? If you put more effort into it, if you make these things happen, other people from a distance may say, oh, wow, he's so lucky. He became the first one in school to win something with Odyssey of the Mind competition. Well, guess what? It's not because of the luck, it's because you put in extra effort, right? It wasn't available to anybody at school, and because of you, you are able to do something. Okay? So really look into those things. On the right-hand side, I have many of the so-called famous summer camps listed. Okay? And these are great opportunities to participate in order to get to the science competition stage. All right? So if you don't participate, you're not going to be able to win Intel. Okay? Your typical school physics class or chemistry class projects probably won't cut it. All right? As I said earlier, many of these winning entries are interdisciplinary projects. Okay, so at school, it's very difficult to do that because you're going to work with your physics teacher. Guess what? Most likely, he's going to be able to help you and direct you and guide you in some physical science projects. But if you need help, perhaps with some bio, with some other things, well, you have to go to a different teacher. It doesn't easily happen at school. Okay, but if you go to YSP, if you go to ISI, if you participate in CIMA, if you participate in some of these extensive, high-level advanced research projects, summer camps, you will get sometimes a team of mentors, experts from multiple fields. And in fact, many of the professors at these top-tier universities probably already have those interdisciplinary training and knowledge and skills. So they will be able to provide you with a lot of the guidance necessary. Okay? In fact, if you look at some of these programs' alumni list, it reads who's who with every year's Intel, Siemens, and all these top-tier competitions. Okay, so these are great gateways to the next stage. All right? Okay, so the final stage, since we're talking about Intel, we're talking about these competitions, is the competition phase. Right? Many of them are only open to seniors, by the way. So after all these years of building up your skills, doing really wonderful research work, science work, get involved, right? Participate. If you don't submit your entry, you're not going to win, obviously. Okay? So let's look at some of these competitions. Ian already introduced some of them, so I will focus more on the differences, on some of the special nuances. But as you can tell, Intel STS is pretty much the top science research competition. Okay? Even though the top prize is $100,000, and Siemens also offers $100,000, and in fact Siemens offers more because Siemens awards that to the top individual and the top team every year. Okay? So basically Siemens doubles Intel's prize money, but still Intel STS is much more prestigious, okay, regardless of what the other competition people say. This is pretty much the #1 competition, okay? And it's much more research-oriented and, in a way, theoretical than the ISAF competition, than the International Science Engineering Fair, okay? So that's about Intel. Again, as I said, it has a pretty impressive list of past winners. Now, the ISAF competition, on the other hand, opens up to all high schoolers, ninth graders all the way up to seniors, and it's available for anybody around the globe. Okay, so every year, 50, 60, this year, more than 70 countries participating in it. Intel STS only opens to US citizens. Okay, so it's mostly students in the US, but there are some American schools around the globe. Sometimes they do occasionally send students and they actually get into the semifinals and finals. Okay, but it's mostly for US students. So that's the biggest difference between the two. Now, of course, for ISAF, it's very critical for kids to have good presentation skills because from almost the beginning of the competition stage, they have to do presentations, they have to do poster boards, and they are in this huge convention room, even at the regional level, to basically outselling their own projects in front of the other competitors. Okay, so your presentation skills is critical. You need to know how to put up the best posters, the best projects, and you also need to know how to present your projects the best way you can. Okay, so that's probably the major difference as Intel STS goes. Your research paper is most important. So whether it's very high level, very advanced, otherwise you probably won't win anything. Okay, so these are the two Intel ones. What about Google? Well, Google Science Fair is even broader than ISAF. Okay, so for Google, it opens up to any 13-year-olds or older, up to 18. Okay, and they actually divide them into 3 groups. 13-year, 14-year-olds is one group. That's the first group. Second group is 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. and the third group, senior group, is 17, 18-year-olds. Okay, so they kind of compete differently in different age groups until the last stage, until the 3 finalists. Okay, so before that, they also have 3 regions around the globe. So in other words, you kind of compete in regionals and your own age group first, and then you get to the regionals and the finals, and then the grand prize winner. Okay, for Google, the grand prize is $50,000. It's not as high as Intel, but they have a lot of other interesting prizes. You know, you get 2 weeks with National Geographic and explore some of the most exotic and interesting places. And that kind of reminds me, a couple of years ago, we helped an MBA student getting into a Harvard MBA. Guess what? His story is explorations in the South Pole. Okay, so these kinds of life experiences also critical, very interesting, very challenging, and great character building, personal development anecdotes. Okay, so the Google Science Fair has lots of these other fringe benefits besides winning money. You actually get an opportunity to do a lot of other wonderful things at Google, at other companies, and at many of the leading science outlets. Okay, so that's the Google Science Fair. And then let's look at the Siemens competition. Okay, Siemens competition, in fact, is very much similar to Intel STS. Okay, so again, here it's a very research-oriented. You need to have very advanced, very high-level research projects. Presentation is important, but during the early stages, it's pretty much all based on paper. Okay, so if your research paper, if your writing doesn't cut it, you don't even get to the next level to be able to present as a finalist or as a finalist. Okay? The only difference is Siemens has been able to put up even more money in a way, because for Siemens, it's no longer just seniors. Seniors are the individual prize entries or competitors. Okay? But for team work, you can start as ninth grade, okay, in your freshman year. Okay, so for Siemens, it's also available to a much broader audience. But remember, if you're going to participate as an underclassman, it's very advisable to join teams, join up with other students, because otherwise your research probably won't be advanced enough to win it. Okay. Again, as I said, the top prize, Siemens uses pretty much the same structure. Top prize $100,000, second prize $75K, and third prize $50,000 USD. Okay, but they do award 3 individual winners and 3 team winners as well. So it's almost twice the prize pool. All right, so these are the at least top competitions. In fact, there are many others. Okay, so I'm not going to go over many of the other competitions, but again, if parents are interested, they can always find out more. In fact, one of the earlier questions from a student was about eligibility requirements, so on and so forth. Get on these competitions' website. Okay? They have very specific, very clear instructions and rules and requirements. Okay? Get started early. Get to know them early. Now, as you can see, science is one of the paths I detailed today, right? So if you really want to get into these kinds of high-level competitions, you need to do a good job with the preparation work during the preparation phase. You need to really participate both at school and during the summer or outside of school doing research. Participate in those research programs. And then finally, of course, with all that work, you need to participate. You need to get into these competitions. You need to submit your applications and entries. But that's just one pass. What about these other 2? I kind of jog up the mountain towards our goal, right? Because unfortunately, right, most students are not Eric Chen or not even close to what he has done, right? What do we do then, right? If you are not going to be like Eric Chen, and I think it's probably going to be for a long time for any other students to repeat what he has been able to do. What else can you do? Okay, still, the preparation phase is important. The participation phase is important. and getting into these competitions, submitting your entries is important. Okay? In fact, for most top-tier colleges, if we look at it from a college applications perspective, it's the process, it's the experience that counts. Okay, do simple math. Every year, how many people get into Intel STS semifinals? Do you guys know? 300 people. Okay, only 300 semifinalists. So I'm not even talking about the winner, what's top 10 or the finalists. Okay, if you get into semifinals, you are top 300 in the nation. Now let's look at Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, MIT, top 5 schools, freshman class. How many students in the freshman class study STEM fields? Anybody with a wild guess? More than 5,000. Okay, so just among the top 5 schools, already more than 5,000 students versus 300 who wins Intel semifinals get to study STEM fields. Okay, so that's very simple math, right? We already know the colleges don't really look at your resume and see, okay, Intel semifinalists in. No awards? No, forget it out. That's not how they do admissions. Okay, so the first phase of building your foundation skills, prepare yourself well, and the second phase, participation in these research. Those are the key items they look for in your experience, in your development, okay? Not the final awards. So kids, as well as parents, don't look at it as a process of one way with no return. If I don't get that Intel award, I'm going to be done or I'm doomed. That's not how it works. Okay, so participation is still important. Really do participate. Without winning the awards, it's still a very worthwhile experience. Okay, so then of course, that's why we go back to that initial point. Right, now we've done all this work. Now we've learned all this knowledge. Now we've perfected all these skills. Put them into good use. Okay, so always remember why you do scientific research. Not years ago, Mr. Wei said on that day at Intel, because science research can get me into Harvard. That's not why you do research. Okay, so really think about that second character or second characteristics about how we can raise our young and really educate them the right way. Okay, and then of course we have another example, right? Well, for girls, most students are not like Natalie Pullman either, right? So do we just give up? No. Still, building a good foundation and active participation in other extracurricular activities are critical. Okay, and again, the same point about, well, now you've done all this wonderful work in middle school and high school. Make sure you know the reasons, the whys. Okay, why are you doing all those things? Okay, I said again, service, service, and service. Why is that? Well, let's look at it. Okay, we have these goals. By the way, those two things are actually from Yale admission dean's paper from a few years back. Okay, when he was talking about what kinds of people they try to inspire and educate at Yale. Okay, so to kind of explain it even in more direct languages, okay, this is exactly what he said. And we can talk about these probably for days, but let me pick out one or two of them just to share with parents. But the first one is not without it's without saying. It's about service, right? It's about how to lead and how does Yale define leadership? That's a very good hint. Okay, you lead not by holding more officers' positions, not by having more titles in your resume. You lead by putting your own ambition behind the common good. That's how you lead. Okay, so if you say you have a lot of leadership potential, leadership qualities. You better have many experiences and stories to show that you always help others. Okay? You serve your school, your communities, and by the way, kids, your family. Okay? I used to do interviews for Penn, and when kids excitedly talk about their community service activities and how many wonderful things they've done for their communities, for their church, for school, so on and so forth. Sometimes I take them right down from that cloud and ask, who washed dishes at home last night? And they are typically stunned. They don't expect me to ask something like that. Okay, and it's very, very interesting, very funny actually. Most of the kids who grow up in the US are pretty naive and pretty simple. And some of them go right to the answer without even thinking. Oh, you know what, Mr. Wade, I've never washed dishes at home. In fact, now you mention it. They're already 17, 18-year-olds. And they've never washed dishes at home. And yet they're telling me all these wonderful, quote-unquote, community service experiences. If you don't serve your parents, if you don't serve your siblings at home, who are actually your dearest, who actually love you the most, who are you kidding? You're going to serve others who really are totally unrelated to you. Okay, so everything starts from home. Okay, starts from something very small, very basic. Help your mom with household chores. Believe me. If you don't do that, you're not going anywhere. I'm going to Harvard or Princeton. All right, so, and the second one, Yale Dean mentioned, I think it's very applicable actually for today's event, right? He actually said it in a very direct language. Have you, as yet, loved anyone or anything beyond reason? The key word is reason. Okay, when I talk to our students, especially when we meet for the first time, they come to Ivy Max, we chat about their experiences, students' activities. Sometimes I ask them why they do certain things. They shrug their shoulders. They cannot tell me. Or others, well, mom wanted me to. That's not how you live your life. That's not how you do things, especially if you want to get into science. Okay, do you know many of the researchers go into the lab 8 o'clock in the morning and don't get out of the lab, don't walk away from their workbench until sometimes 9 or 10 at night? If you're not passionate about something, you're not going to succeed in doing that. Okay? The first difficulty, the first challenge you run into, you're going to immediately blame your mom because she wanted you to do it. Okay, so really, in Chinese, I think, have you loved anyone or anything beyond reason really translates into what? 你做事做人有没有热忱? Okay, English, that's a pretty direct way to say it, but basically he's asking Yale students, do they actually have a passion about someone or something? Okay, and that's the basic ingredient to be successful in science research. You have to be passionate about it. Okay, not because you want to do research so you can win Intel Science or a little bit longer you can go to Stanford. No, you need to really be passionate about that. Okay. Finally, again we kind of mentioned it, right? You need to know why you're doing all these things. Okay. He said, most importantly, do you care and do something about concerns that are larger than yourself? So you really have to think big. You have to know why you're working on these projects in the first place. Okay? And that's the only way to succeed. And that's really the only way that happens to also helping you getting into these top tier colleges. Okay? So, they flashed the running out of time already several times. Sorry for running a little bit over my started time, but I actually have a lot more stuff behind each one of these bubbles and squares. So thank you for the opportunity. And again, if you have any other questions, I'm sure we can share some of our experiences and stories with you later during the Q&A session, the panel session. And of course, you're always welcome to come to Ivy Max, and we'll be more than happy to share with you our other stories and these experiences helping students get into the top tier schools. Thank you.